So writing a book, this is one of the first big dreams I ever had as a young person. And we tend to build it up and it becomes this sort of huge unattainable thing for, at least for me. And I think for a lot of us, it's sort of like falling in love. It's like rom-coms, you watch 8,000 rom-coms and then you actually start falling in love, you build it up into some big dramatic thing and you fuck it up because you built it up so much. So my personal history with the writing a book kind of goal is I love to write. I was pretty good at writing. I was always one of the better ones in my class. But whenever I tried to write a book, and I tried repeatedly in various writing classes, I would get like 3/4 of the way, the class would be over. I would write super quickly and have tons of fun, and then I would just lose it. So what really worked for me was to break it down into manageable little bits. So I actually, a la Charles Dickens, and this may not work for you, this is just what worked for me. I serialized it. I wrote one chapter, one chapter, one chapter, one chapter, one chapter, and each time I shared it with people as I went. And the reason why this is so genius and why I recommend it is because you can use that to build up your Instagram following, your Facebook following for the book before you publish it. So I had more than 100,000 Facebook fans for my book specifically before I even published it. Publishers will love that. If you're self-publishing or kickstartering, I also kickstarted it, which is a huge marketing vehicle. So it really helps me business-wise in terms of the book. Books, as you may know, and if you don't, you should, are have basically kind of died. Like the top 1% of books are marketed and authors go on tours. Kind of what you think of as being a book author is like just the top 5% really of writers now. The vast majority of books, while still people are reading and buying books, which is fantastic, aren't really supported. So I looked at a lot of publishers and I had a pretty big website and a lot of advantages. And they still weren't offering me that much in terms of, they offered me some money, but not much marketing at all. And marketing is what I cared about more than money, because if they don't market it, if they don't push it, the book is nothing. So I think
the publishing house.
The publishing house, yeah. You'll have a nice book that you can brag about, and then no one will read it. So I wanted to avoid that. And while that may be the business part of writing a book, let's face it, we're writing a book because we want people to read it and we want to be able to, be an author. And so that's part of it. The cooler part about the actual writing process of serializing it is, I personally found it really difficult to kind of write a whole book, a whole journey, and it was going off in this one path. And I never had anyone other than maybe a friend or a girlfriend or whatever reading it along the way. So I felt kind of lost. Like I liked it and it was good, but I felt like it sort of drifted. Serializing it kept it directly in touch with my readers. So my readers could say, I love this, I hate this part confuses me, this part bores me. I found it incredibly helpful. So as I wrote the book, it was more like I had feedback along the way. It was like building a brick by brick, a nice wall, and you could tell if everything was straight and you could tell if everything was solid and strong. So I love serializing. That's what I would recommend. In terms of the title, I wouldn't personally, generally, I wouldn't. You can think about titles all you want, have a working title, but don't be attached to your title. The title should be the bow on the present, the gift. The title can tie the whole book together, kind of like the rug in whatever it is. And so the title, wait till the end. Don't build up the title too much.
Can you speak to your process of choosing a title with things I'd like to do with you?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it was sort of easier or more boring because every chapter was along this theme of things I would like to do with you. And when it came time to title the book, I said, well, let's just title it Things I Would Like to Do With You in the Woods, which was the first chapter. And Lindsay was like, who was editing it, was like, I think that's a bit long and too specific, because it's not all about being in the forest or going camping or to some cabin. So I was like, okay, well, things I would like to do with you then. And she was like, yeah, that's great. So that was sort of almost too easy, but that's kind of how a title should be. If you wait till the end, the title will just be kind of obvious and natural. So I really recommend that. In terms of the process of writing, you can do it on a schedule. Like a lot of people, Stephen King, etc., will write 3 hours every morning or whatever, Monday through Friday. I think personally that's a good habit, but it tends to make writing a discipline, not in a fun way. And it tends to make writing, what if you have nothing to say? My writing generally would be kind of like a tea kettle that would boil. So I would wait until I actually had something to say. So I actually really felt like it was more brave when I was writing to just wait. So I would write 5 things a week, one week, and then I would wait 3 months sometimes. And I wasn't procrastinating and I wasn't losing focus on it. I was just waiting for something to naturally come up that I wanted to write about. And when it happened, and then I could write, and it was genuine every time. Whether it was good writing or bad writing, you can decide for yourself, but it was genuine. And then the editing process took me a year and a half. It took a year and a half to write it, or a year to write it or something, and then it took a long time to edit it. Editing was brutal. If any of you are type A, organized people, if you have no dishes in your sink, editing will be a cinch. I'm more of a creative type, and editing was brutal. So for me, I worked with my own editors. I didn't want to give up control on the cover, the title, or the edits to a publishing house. So I personally am not a fan of working with a publishing house. That said, if you can find an editor and publishing house that respects your title, your cover, design wishes, and your the writing, the editing, God bless. I still wouldn't have been happy there because I didn't want to print in China with plastic lined, plastic coated pages. So I wanted an eco book. So I was pretty picky about it. If you're less picky, you can print via Amazon or whatever publisher you want. So that's, I think, most of what I have to say. There's a lot, we can do a lot of specific breakdowns in other videos on Kickstarter on how to serialize it and build up your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram for the book, on the editing process, on the writing process. But that's a pretty good overview, I think. Thank you.